Ssemanda, the intuitive psychiatrist, and you're listening to Stepping into Soul Power. Friends, have you ever looked around the and realized that you might be the odd person out. You may not quite fit in this episode of Stepping into Soul Power. We're going to explore belonging and how maybe belonging doesn't always mean blending in. Sometimes the spaces that make us feel out of place are actually the ones calling us to step into our power and create something beautiful. Our next guest is globally recognized entrepreneur, creator, community builder. She's written some books that are wonderful. Founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, yes. So you're in a field that there are not a lot of females.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
It is, and thank goodness, right? But you're a trailblazer. But not everyone in our audience knows your story, and so I'd love to hear your path.
Yeah, I would love to share that. Thank you. So, I actually went straight into the family business after high school. I didn't go to college or university. And I started off as reception and I worked my way up and I actually did courses by correspondence. So, this was before there was online courses. I did it by correspondence where they actually mailed you the books and then they mailed you the tests and a proctor had to oversee it. Anyway, so I did that. I also had some side hustles during that time. And so I did 8 years of operations, 8 years of sales, and then I was director of sales and marketing. And we needed to be able to tell our brand story. And I was listening to Lewis Howes. He's got the School of Greatness podcast. And I thought if Lewis Howes can have a podcast, why can't Sarah Barnes-Humphrey?
Yeah.
And I asked a male colleague from the company, and I said, "Will you be my co-host?" And tongue in cheek, we called it Two Babes Talk Supply Chain because I wanted to see how far we could push the industry. And then we got 1,000 downloads overnight one night. So I knew I was on to something. But a week before my 37th birthday, my dad closed his doors, and I was out on my butt with nowhere to go. I lost my team, I lost my co-host, and I had companies paying a small amount, but they were paying to come on the show. And I had to learn graphic design, social media, website design, you name it. I had to learn it and to keep the podcast going. And I started the Woman in Supply Chain series right after that happened in January 2018. And by April 2018, no women would come on a show called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. So I rebranded it to Let's Talk Supply Chain. The rest is kind of history. We've now got the second podcast called Blended. We've got the nonprofit. We have a team of 14 people where 98% are women-owned businesses, which we're super proud about. Oh yeah, that's a little bit about my story.
How have you reconciled with being different?
Kind of been different my whole life. And for a long time, I blamed myself. I blamed myself for a really long time. I was bullied in elementary school. Growing up in the family business was very difficult because you didn't really know who you could trust and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I
Hold
blamed
on, hold on.
myself.
That's a strong statement. What do you mean you didn't really know who you could trust?
Yeah, well, being a part of a family business, I mean, you don't know whether somebody's talking to you because they're trying to get ahead
I
and they're
see.
trying to get through you to, your parents who essentially run the company.
I see.
So there was a lot of trust issues there.
I see.
But I will say that for a long time, I blamed myself because I thought I was the common denominator, right?
What was
It was different. People didn't treat me very well. I was bullied and there was a lot of things that I went through. And you'll see that through the book, actually. If you read the book, you'll see that because I do talk about some of these instances. But for a long time, I blamed myself. And so I had to work through that to really find and I know we're talking about belonging today. So
yes.
I want to be mindful of that. But I had to work through a lot of that. I've been in therapy since the like beginning of my 20s. And I had to work through a lot of that to really find out where I truly felt like I belonged.
I see. I see. I think you bring up a really important point because first and foremost, kudos to you for going to therapy. I'm a huge as a psychiatrist, I'm a huge proponent of really looking inside, figuring your stuff out because everybody's got stuff. Even the people who don't go to therapy, you have some things too. And so self-reflection is really important. I guess I want to get a sense of it sounds like there was a turning point. And I guess if you could speak to what that was.
Well, and I talk about this in the book as well. I talk about it being a journey, not a destination. And I think we all have a lot of different turning points, but I don't think we really take the time to step back and recognize it. One of the biggest turning points for me was losing everything in my family business. I thought I was going to I thought I was going to take it over. It was my identity, it was who I was. And then I lost everything and I had to rebuild. And so that in itself could potentially be a turning point or considered a turning point. But I think realistically, it was all the steps that I took thereafter that were also turning points because I would put myself in really uncomfortable situations because I have a fear of public speaking.
Yes.
And I did some really out of the box things to overcome my fear of public speaking, and I still have to work on it today. Like I've spoken on stages, I speak on stages all the time, and I still have to work on it to this day. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the fact that there's this one moment that changes everything and we're going to be perfect for the rest of our lives. It's not true.
Yeah.
Some days we're going to wake up and it's 100%, some days we're going to wake up and it's 40%, and we have to work through those things to be able to
Absolutely.
find how we belong and find our voice and figure ourselves out in the world and who we want to be and the impact that we want to make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're saying a lot of things that are really important for anyone. I think that the journey is the destination. I love how um the words that come to mind there's this self-compassion that you talk about really having as you've gone through this process. I wonder for you, having had any experiences where you felt like you didn't belong, how did that shape the communities that you've built?
That's such a great question. And I talk a little bit about this also in the book around how I went to this energy healer. And she said this thing to me that I will never, ever forget. It's one of the reasons why I put it in there is that my personal life has been so messy because it set me up for what I do today. And that's creating safe space for conversation. And that has been my first step towards community, not even realizing it at the time because I was only told this, I think it was last year, maybe in 2024. But it that helped me in the fact to stop blaming myself, right? Like these are the types of things that happen to you so that you can create and figure out what your superpower is and the impact that you want to make in the world. And so my stepping stone to community was creating safe space for conversation no matter what topic that we're talking about. Like, Let's Talk Supply Chain is about supply chain. The Blended podcast that I have is about inclusion in the workplace. And I bring 5 different people together from different walks of life to talk about it. And they're not all experts, they just share stories and perspectives. And we talk through really hard topics like privilege and things like that. And so it's through creating those safe spaces and understanding through empathy, because I've been through a lot of things and
Yes.
things have been messy for me, that I can create that safe space and then in turn create community around that.
Having done that, can you describe what are the criteria? What do you need to create a safe space for conversation? Because this is something that everyone can learn from this.
Yeah. And I think there's all sorts of examples in that podcast. I'll be honest. I would really highly encourage everybody to go listen to 1 or 2 of the episodes. They could be a little bit long, they're an hour and a half. But some of the examples I'll give is I can't remember which episode it was, but I used the wrong word. And everybody, all the guests were like, wait, 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 we need to stop this episode. You really shouldn't be using that word. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. Why shouldn't I use it? What does it mean? What can I do instead? What does that look like? And so we had a conversation where I was asking questions and I was generally interested because obviously I want to make sure that I'm doing a service to the people who are listening and the guests who are coming on the show. And at the end of it, we figured it all out. And at the end of it, they said, "Okay, so you're going to edit that out of the episode." And I said, "Absolutely not." This was a teaching moment for me, but this is also a teaching moment for everybody else. This is how you have a conversation about. This is how the conversation should go to be able to create that safe space for that dialogue to have the conversation so everybody can get to their own destination. And so I don't know if it's an inherent skill or muscle that I've kind of like built up over the years. Some of it comes from experience and the fact that I've been through a lot of mess that sort of ultimately creates that empathy and that sort of compassion to be able to create that space. But I think it's also really about being open to different perspectives and understanding that if something triggers you in a negative way, that that's not them, that's you. And what is it that triggered me and why?
Absolutely. So many great points, right? So components of creating a safe space, being empathetic is one, being compassionate is another. You also talked about modeling, like the love that you did that you didn't just tell, but you showed like, hey, this is how we have a conversation. This is how we create a space to have a difficult conversations. And then you also talked about being open, having being open to hearing what other people are saying. Beautiful, beautiful things. I wonder for you, was there a particular moment where you felt that you will never be quite the same in terms of a community builder?
So, me being the same person that I was before,
Yes.
I think the turning point was writing the book because I really had a year of like self reflection and talking about which stories would make the book, which stories wouldn't make the book, and taking a look at who I was in that moment and how I handled those situations and realizing how I handle those now and seeing how far I've come. It was in writing the book that, like, it was kind of therapeutic, I'm not gonna lie. But it was in writing the book and really opening up myself, being vulnerable and authentic around the stories, and just reflecting, like I said, on how I handled things, how I was triggered, my response,
Yes.
and what I could learn from that, and how I handle things now, and what does that look like?
Can you talk about that? How do you handle things now? Like, because you're right in a lot of ways that we learn so much from the interactions that we have with other people, and especially our triggers. So, if you could speak to that, how your response has shifted
Yeah, and I'll be
more recent.
honest, there are some days I get it right, there are a lot of days I get it wrong, and so I'm still working on it. It's not that I'm, like, 100% cured, but I think I'm just a little bit more aware, and I'm less blameful. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know how when you get into conflict with other people, a lot of negative emotions come up, but really a lot of things come up around blame and
Mm,
you're blaming the other person for doing things. And I think I've really been able to shift my perspective from having some conflict in the fact that I'm no longer necessarily blaming them. I can now articulate what it is that I didn't like or how it triggered me because of what I've been through. And I can articulate and I can talk about that
yeah.
and not blame them for it. And so the conversation is different. The conversation is less combative
Okay.
and more open to dialogue and conversation to work through it.
I love that. I love that. I think it sounds like the inner dialogue that you're having with with yourself has shifted. And um and then so you approach the person much in I guess sounds like a more
Well, and I
open.
think I'm more open to taking responsibility for my side in things, right? Because when there's a
Mm,
story or there's a narrative that's put around something, there's my
yes.
side, their side, and there's the truth in between.
Yes.
And so I think just recognizing in the fact that they're looking at it differently. I'm looking at it one way and it could be right, it could be wrong. There could be some filler that I put in there as far as the story. right? But being open to taking the time to working through it through conversation and sharing my authenticity and my vulnerability to be able to get there instead of putting up the walls, right? Because like before, I would put up the walls and be like, you want to treat me that way? Absolutely not. Cut off, bye bye. And that really doesn't serve anybody.
That you're so right. There is a word called stonewalling. Like you described, you're just like putting up walls. It's so beautiful to see how you've transformed and really embraced authenticity and vulnerability. I wonder, what do you think it takes to build communities like this that are authentic, that where you can be vulnerable? Because I feel like right now when we look at entrepreneurship and many of the businesses that are out there, there's a lot, like, people are under a lot of stress, high pressure environments, a lot of fluctuation as far as like what's what's going on. I wonder, are there specific practical things that you've learned along the way to help keep you centered while you're building these communities?
Yeah. So actually, and I'm sorry, I keep going back to the book, but I put some affirmations in the book that I actually tell myself while I walk the dogs every morning.
Yes.
I will say to do that in the morning before I sort of start my day kind of helps me put my frame of mind together. It's what I'm grateful for. It's what I would like to achieve and what I want that to look like, and that I'm this person that can achieve these things. And so I shared that in the book because it actually took me a couple of years to put it together because it's a compilation of different things that people have said. One of them is Tyler Perry. At the end of it, I talk about miracles happening every single day, and that's from
Yeah.
Tyler Perry, right? And so I think there's a little bit of that. I think there's some gratitude journaling as well. I think it's really important to think about what you're grateful for in the day, but then grateful for in the future.
Mm.
So what is it that you want to do and accomplish, and write it down that you're actually grateful for it already happening. And that sort of helps me in keeping focus on like what's important. What am I working towards? What does that look like? And I think like feedback loops, talking to people. And I also think trying different things. So a lot of people get caught up in, I try this thing and then it didn't work out. And then, oh my goodness, I'm a failure and I've got to shut it down. Most people don't care and they're not paying that much attention to you. I'll be honest. So I try things all the time. I try things and I put things out there and I put this brand out there and it didn't work and I shut it down or I sundown it and nobody notices. And so I don't get caught up in the failure of it. I just keep reinventing and innovating to figure out what it is that's going to work.
I love that. Not getting caught up in the failure, being able to walk away. It's a strength. It is the strength. Can you I wanted, because you talked about a couple different things that are great, like affirmations, gratitude journaling, and then you said something that I haven't really I've heard. I know about feedback, but feedback loops. I haven't. Tell us a little bit about like what feedback loops were you making that were particularly helpful in helping you keep like centered.
So I talk to people all the time. I'm very grateful in the fact that I get to travel all the time. I get to go to a lot of different conferences and I'm talking to different people. And actually every day on Zoom, I have back-to-back meetings every single day and I'm talking to different people. And I really just ask for feedback. It's just about asking kind of the right questions, right? Or asking good questions
Yeah.
in what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Right? So if they're part of the community, I'll talk to them about the community, what you like, what you don't like, what could be better, what could be done differently. And so being open to feedback and understanding that it is a discussion and a dialogue and not something to take personally.
Okay. I love that. So when you're saying it, so I guess I just need a clarification. It's like
Yeah.
you're asking for an evaluation, and you're
Yeah.
being very open
Yeah.
as
And even if they're not part of the community, it's questions like, what's missing? What would you like to see? What is something, you know what I mean? So really just asking people for opinions and perspectives about the different things that you're doing because you're doing it for them.
Yes, yes. Okay. 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 You've spoken really openly about overcoming a fear of public speaking and growing into visibility for women who are afraid to take up space or share their voice. I guess what mindset shift or practice can help them show up more fully?
I think it's just the pebbles every day. Just trying to do something to either celebrate a win every day or
Yeah.
putting it out there that they have done something or accomplished something today. And I don't think that we do that enough. Like I have this woman in supply chain series and I'll be honest, we feature these women, they're excited to be on the show and then crickets. They don't post about it, they don't promote it.
Oh,
And when we ask them, they say they're bragging. And that's really got to stop because it's kind of like we want all these things. We want to be featured. We want to tell our story. We want to be able to make an impact. But we can't make an impact if we keep making ourselves small and thinking that we're doing it wrong, right? No, who's going to tell you you're doing it right or wrong or indifferent? I mean, only you. Somebody can tell you from the outside that you're doing something that they don't like. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong,
it's true.
right? And I just think that a lot of times we need to build that muscle as women to be able to recognize not only in ourselves what's holding us back,
Mm,
but also recognize and make sure that we are recognized for our accomplishments and we're celebrating those wins because that's really where true growth comes from. And
I
that's how
love
we're going to elevate each other. That's how we're going to bring each other up. Because if we don't see other women doing it, or we only see a few women doing it, then they're going to look at that and be like, oh, that's not me. I don't accomplish enough. I can't put it out there. But if they see everybody celebrating small wins, accomplishments, whatever that looks like, then we normalize it.
I love that. I love that. How are you celebrating your small wins?
I do it in a variety of ways. Sometimes I'm really bad at it, not gonna lie. But recently I made a purchase while I was in Paris. I bought a purse and that was celebrating my win of accomplishing the book and also having the book be a bestseller.
Love it. Love it. Now that the book's been out for a little bit, just a little bit, what has been the most surprising response that you've had regarding the book?
I have had men reach out to me
Really?
and tell me how much the book has affected them. And it's not that I didn't write it with men in mind. I wrote it for sort of a female audience in the fact that I wasn't sure if my stories would resonate. I didn't know. And it's like I had one gentleman reach out to me and tell me he was only 12 pages in and he was crying already because he resonated so much with the stories. And to be honest with you, every single review, every single, somebody reaching out to say how much they resonated with the story and thank you so much for sharing so authentically,
Yeah.
has meant so much. But those have been the most surprising.
Wow. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I wonder, as you've gone through this journey, I guess this can affect our mind, our body, and our spirit. And I guess I want to ask you, how has this affected those three things?
Which the book?
Yeah, the book.
It's affected it in a lot of different ways because again, I was able to self-reflect on a lot of these parts of my journey that I either handled well or didn't handle well. And I was also able to reflect on what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to share, what I didn't share.
Mm,
And I was very intentional around this book about sharing the fact that this was the stories from my perspective and
yes.
that there's always two sides to every story, and I wasn't trying to take somebody else's perspective from the story, and I was very intentional about that. I wanted to make sure that the audience knew that, and I've had a couple of people thank me for that in the fact that sometimes we tell these stories and we own it, but really at the end of the day, there's two parties to that story, and you don't wanna speak for somebody else, and so I was very intentional about that, and so, and also spiritually, like sharing, the fact that I go to energy healers and mediums and I like crystals and all that kind of stuff. It's been fascinating to find my people as well, right?
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I know that our audience is going to want to connect with you. Can you tell us, like, how can they find you?
Yes, yes, yes. So on Instagram, it's Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. On LinkedIn, it's Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. And then we've got the website, sarahbarneshumphrey.com. And then, of course, you can find the book on amazon.com. I buried her in a French press, a memoir about finding my voice and the power of being heard.
Wow. Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me and congratulations on all your success.
If you haven't heard it yet today, I appreciate you. The soul in me honors the soul in you. If you'd like to see more episodes like this, please subscribe or click here. And friends, if this spoke to you, leave a comment below. We would love to hear from you.